The dryer buzzed insistently, a repetitive drone that made no sense since it hadn't been turned on. Julian glanced at the control panel. The screen was dark. The power was off. A strange, whirring sound emanated from within the drum, faint and mechanical. He opened the door. Nestled behind a crumpled gray sweater was something distinctly out of place. Not his, not belonging to Delilah, and certainly not anything they'd ever owned. It was a scarf, not neatly folded, not even clean, but rather carelessly shoved in, stained with what appeared to be foundation near the center. Light beige cashmere with an intricate paisley pattern. Clearly expensive, not something one finds on a clearance rack. He stared at it as if expecting it to speak, to offer an explanation for its presence. Then he noticed something else. It was still slightly warm. His gaze shifted towards the bathroom. He could hear the shower running. Delilah was still inside, meaning this had been placed here just moments before. His throat constricted. Reaching in, he slowly pulled out the scarf, feeling its weight in his hands. The kind of scarf someone might wear when they have no intention of returning home that night. Then came the scent. Perfume. Sweet. Not the kind one might dab on before work, but the kind intended to linger on someone's skin. He dropped the scarf onto the nearby shelf as if it had burned him. Delilah hadn't even greeted him when she arrived home. She simply walked in, kicked off her shoes, and headed straight for the bathroom. No hug, no kiss, just the sound of water and silence. Until now. The bathroom door creaked open. He panicked, quickly slamming the dryer shut and snatching the scarf from the shelf. He concealed it beneath a stack of folded towels just as she emerged. She walked past him into the kitchen, humming a cheerful tune as if nothing were amiss. She reached for a glass. "Parched," she said casually, her hair still dripping, a playful smile gracing her lips, a smile he hadn't seen in weeks. He watched her drink, and he waited, because unbeknownst to her, her phone had vibrated on the nightstand 2 minutes earlier, and he had glimpsed the notification. "Last night was worth all the trouble. You're unforgettable." She had no idea he'd opened it, no idea he'd read the subsequent message, and certainly no idea what he was planning to do as soon as she left the room. But she would, very, very soon. He hadn't slept at all the previous night. He had pretended to, his back turned, his breathing slow and even, but his eyes were fixed on the digital clock beside the bed, counting the minutes between each buzz of her phone. They came in clusters, always silenced, always face down. The vibration against the wooden surface was subtle, yet unmistakable. At 2:12 a.m., she had gotten up to use the restroom. She was gone for nearly 20 minutes. He knew better than to ask. As soon as the water ceased and the scent of an unfamiliar body wash wafted into the hallway, his stomach clenched. That brand wasn't hers, not even close. She favored lavender and honey. This one was different. Earthy, warm, and distinctly masculine. After she closed the bathroom door, he quietly made his way to the nightstand. Her phone was still unlocked. Perhaps she had forgotten. Perhaps she wanted him to see. He didn't open the full thread. He didn't need to. Just that single notification, bold and undeniable, "Can you still feel me? Because I still taste you." He didn't gasp, didn't weep. He simply turned, placed the phone face down again, and walked into the kitchen to stare blankly into space. Now she stood across from him, sipping orange juice, feigning a stretch, as if her body hadn't just betrayed everything they had built together. Her towel hung precariously low, droplets of water tracing paths down her spine. Turning her back to him, she casually asked if he had eaten. He didn't respond because he saw it then, on the nape of her neck, a faint discoloration, oval-shaped, slightly pink with darker edges, not quite concealed by her hair. She thought she had hidden it, but she hadn't. Something inside him began to crumble, as if his bones could no longer bear the weight of her deceit. Turning back around, her eyebrows raised, she asked, "You okay?" He forced a nod. "Yeah, just tired." She walked past him towards the bedroom. "I'm going to nap for a few hours before work. Don't forget to feed Silas." The dog had been dozing on the living room rug the entire time, oblivious to the fact that his human world was unraveling. As soon as she closed the door, he walked straight to the laundry room. He wasn't sure what he was looking for. Maybe proof. Maybe a reason to shout. Maybe something that would tell him he wasn't going insane, feeling like a ghost in his own home. He discovered the bag stuffed behind the washer, a brown leather duffel bag, one he had never seen before. Inside, a change of clothes, men's cologne, a pair of compression socks, and a pair of loafers. Size 12. He wore a 10. Then came the receipt, folded neatly in the side pocket. A printed checkout slip from a boutique downtown. Same day, time-stamped at 6:03 a.m., exactly 43 minutes before she had walked into their home and said, "My shift was a nightmare." His fingers trembled as he placed the receipt back into the bag, zipped it shut, and returned it to its hiding place. He didn't know what to do yet. He didn't shout, didn't storm in and throw the bag at her feet. Instead, he grabbed a marker, walked to the fridge, and scribbled a single sentence on the magnetic board they always used to leave notes for each other. "What am I supposed to do with what I now know?" Then he walked out the front door. No keys, no wallet, just the taste of betrayal in his mouth and a mind racing toward whatever awaited him. He didn't go far, just walked until the cold air numbed the turmoil in his chest. Somewhere between the vacant lot behind the grocery store and the alley by the bus depot, he realized something strange. He didn't feel angry, not yet, just detached, as if he were watching someone else's life fall apart in real time. The words on the magnetic board replayed in his head like a broken record. What am I supposed to do with what I now know? It was a genuine question, not a threat, not even a test, because the thing that frightened him most wasn't what he had already discovered. It was the sense that he hadn't even scratched the surface. He stood outside the house for almost 20 minutes before going back inside. The dog was still asleep. The house still smelled like her perfume. The bedroom door was closed, and behind it he could hear the faint hum of a sound machine she used when she had difficulty falling asleep. He tiptoed around his own heartbeat, which was louder than his footsteps, and opened the linen closet. He wasn't sure why. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the hope that he would find something to explain it all. Something innocent. What he found was a locked box he had never noticed before. In the far corner of the closet, behind old blankets and unused pillowcases, was a built-in metal safe with a digital keypad. It didn't appear to be part of the original structure. Reaching in, he tried to open it, but it was locked, bolted. He didn't want to force it. There were 3 things stacked in front of it: a phone that wasn't charged, a man's chain, black with links, 2 JH for every dance you gave me, a folded note handwritten torn at the edge. He opened the note last, his hands almost too numb to feel the paper. "You said you'd tell him. You said last night was the last lie. If I'm just a secret, stop calling me. Stop saying I mean something if you're too scared to act like it." No name, no signature, just that chilling message in someone else's handwriting, someone who clearly expected more from her, someone who was tired of being kept in the shadows. He held the chain in his hand, imagining the kind of man who wore it, a man with personalized gifts, confidence, and access, a man who probably didn't lie beside guilt every night. The phone was cold. He didn't dare turn it on, not yet. Instead, he carefully placed everything back as he had found it. Then something occurred to him that made the hairs on his neck stand on end. The only way to place those items there was from inside the house. She hadn't just betrayed him with distance. She had brought it into their home. She had stored it beside his linens, hidden evidence inches from where he stood every day, as if he were too foolish or too weak to look closer. But now that he had, he knew one thing for certain. This wasn't an affair born of impulse. It was organized, coordinated, protected, which meant whatever was happening behind his back had been going on for a long time. He stepped back into the kitchen, looked at the magnetic board, and added another line beneath the first. I only asked one question. You answered with silence. Then he opened the back door and walked into the garage, not because he needed air this time, but because he remembered the security cameras they had installed 2 years ago, the ones she insisted they never needed to check. Until now. Dust coated the old DVR as if no one had touched it since installation day. 2 years ago, she had insisted on it after someone broke into a neighbor's car down the street. He had mounted the cameras himself, one in the driveway, one above the front door, and another on the back patio that captured the entire stretch of the yard. No indoor cameras. She was against it. "We're not being watched in our own house," she had said at the time. He had never questioned it. Why would he? Now, standing in the darkened garage, watching the small screen flicker to life, he realized the cameras hadn't stopped recording. The hard drive was full, but not overwritten yet. There were still days left in memory, and the system hadn't been disconnected, just ignored. He fast-forwarded through a few days of footage, searching for anything. Most of it was painfully normal. Delivery drivers, birds, rain, the dog sniffing bushes. But then he saw something that made him pause. Friday, 3:47 a.m. Someone was on the back patio. Not her, not him, not anyone he recognized. The person was tall, dressed in a hoodie and black jeans, head down, walking directly towards the back door. And she let him in. She opened the door as if she had done it 100 times before. No hesitation, no fear. She smiled, pulled him inside by the collar as if it were a ritual, as if the dog wouldn't bark, as if the hallway camera that didn't exist wouldn't catch a damn thing. He stepped back from the monitor, his heart hammering so hard he felt it in his throat. He fast-forwarded again. 10 minutes later, the man walked back out alone. No kiss, no goodbye. Just vanished into the darkness like a shadow. It wasn't the first time either. Tuesday, same hour, same lock, same door. Last Sunday, just before dawn. And 2 weeks ago, he recognized the date because it was the morning of his birthday. The day she had told him she was called into work unexpectedly. She had left him sleeping and welcomed someone else into their home before the sun came up. He paused the video and stared at the still frame of the man's blurred face. It was too dark, but the height, the way he moved, it was familiar in a way he couldn't quite place. It wasn't just some random stranger. His brain was trying to match a shape to a memory. That's when a sound snapped him back. Not the dog, not the screen, but the door from the kitchen to the garage opening slowly. She stood there, wearing his old shirt and sweatpants, phone in one hand, a tired smile on her face. "There you are," she said, as if it were a joke. "You disappeared on me." He didn't respond, didn't move, just left. The video paused behind him. She glanced at the monitor, and he saw it in her eyes. For the first time since this whole thing began, her expression changed. It dropped. Not panic, but recognition. She looked at the screen, then at him, then back at the screen, and she said the words he would never forget. "You weren't supposed to see that. Not, 'What is that?' or 'Why are you spying on me?' Just that. You weren't supposed to see that," as if he had opened a door that should have remained locked. And in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. Something colder than betrayal, deeper than rage, because now they both knew that a line had been crossed, and he wasn't walking away until he knew everything. He didn't speak, and neither did she. Not at first. The monitor behind him kept the image frozen. Her and that man on the patio, her hand on the back of his neck, the back door swinging wide open. The house had never felt smaller, the air heavier. She leaned against the doorframe, staring straight at the paused frame, as if she were trying to remember which version of herself she needed to become right now. Eventually she whispered, "It's not what you think." He gave a quiet, bitter laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was pathetic, the kind of thing people say when they run out of lies, but still haven't found the courage to tell the truth. Then tell me what it is, he replied, his voice flat. Start somewhere. Pick any night. She didn't. She stepped further into the garage, closed the door behind her, and wrapped her arms tightly around herself, as if bracing against an invisible wind. But it wasn't cold out here. Not now. It was just the weight of the moment. That man, she finally said, nodding towards the screen without looking at it. It's not romantic. It's not what it looks like. He cut in, because that's exactly what it looks like, repeatedly. It's complicated. He turned to face her fully now. Say his name. She hesitated, took too long, too deliberately. When she finally spoke, it wasn't the name that shook him. It was everything wrapped around it. Gideon Brooks, she said slowly, carefully. He used to be my life coach. Silence. His hands dropped to his sides. Of all the answers he had imagined, coworker, stranger, someone from the gym, this hadn't been one of them. Not even close. You were in coaching? He asked, confused. When? You never told me. I didn't want you to know, she said quickly, because I was talking about us. That hit him differently, like a slap in slow motion. He stepped back. So, while you were talking about us, you started bringing him into our house? While I was asleep? While I was at work? You did like an affair because it was one. Don't dress it up with a license and an office. Her voice rose for the first time. It wasn't supposed to happen like that, but it did happen, over and over again. You invited him in like I didn't even exist. She rubbed her forehead, turned away, and laughed bitterly. You think I invited him in because I wanted romance? Because I wanted to destroy everything? I was falling apart, Julian. You just didn't see it. He flinched at his name. She hadn't used it in months, maybe years. What I see, he said slowly, is a woman who used to be my wife standing in front of me, telling me that self-help turned into secrets, which turned into a stranger walking through her back door at 4 a.m. You didn't just betray me. You used my absence to build another version of your life that I never got to be a part of. He turned back to the monitor, watching her frozen image, holding the door open for the man she claimed was once her mentor. I was going to tell you, she whispered behind him. He told me to. He gave me ultimatums. I kept saying I'd do it. Why didn't you? The answer came faster than expected. Because I didn't think you'd fight for me. And just like that, the silence shattered. He looked at her, not with anger, not with pity, but with something worse, disbelief. You didn't think I'd fight for you? He repeated slowly, the words catching in his throat. You buried an entire version of yourself in this house. You built a hidden life inside the walls we share. And when the cracks finally showed, you looked me in the eyes and said, I wasn't supposed to see it. I was broken, she said, her voice cracking, and he knew how to talk to that part of me. He nodded, his eyes glassy, but his voice steady. Then maybe you should be standing in his garage right now, not mine. She said nothing, just stood there, frozen, because for the first time in their marriage, she realized she wasn't holding the power anymore. And neither of them knew what tomorrow would look like, but it sure as hell wasn't going to look like yesterday. He walked past her and into the house, not because he was finished, but because the next thing he had to do required a locked door, a fully charged phone, and every ounce of restraint he had left. Because it was finally time to turn on the burner phone he had found in the closet and see what secrets were waiting inside. The phone was older than he expected, one of those cheap, preloaded models you buy in cash at a convenience store, made for a single purpose, to be disposable. It was tucked so deep inside the hidden safe, he had almost missed it entirely. But now it was in his hand, cold and weightless, like a loaded secret. He sat alone in the guest bedroom with the door locked and his real phone powered off. He wasn't ready to talk to anyone, not even friends, not even his mother, who had warned him months ago that something felt off with Delilah. This wasn't the time for support. This was the time for silence, for answers. The burner took a minute to boot up. The battery was barely alive, 4%. He didn't plug it in. He didn't want to alter it in any way. He just needed to see what it knew before it died. When the screen finally lit up, there were no passcodes, no fingerprint locks. It opened straight to the home screen, 2 apps, Messages and Gallery. That's it. He tapped Messages first, a list of numbers, no names, no saved contacts, just numbers, a few local, a few with out-of-state area codes. He picked the thread with the most messages, a number ending in 9257. The texts hit him like cold water. 9257. Leaving the side gate unlocked again, in case you need me. He's getting suspicious. I think he saw the scarf. If he finds out, I'm not denying it anymore. Then Delilah. Don't come tonight. He's been weird all day. He checked the dryer. I think he found your sweater. I'm not deleting this thread. I don't care anymore. Mama. He scrolled up. Weeks, dozens of messages, plans, scheduling, emotional unraveling. And laced in between them were more intimate pieces, messages that read like fragments of late-night conversations spoken between the sheets. 9257. You look so small in his house. But with me, you become someone else. When are you done playing 2 lives? It's not cheating if you've already left him in your heart. But that wasn't the worst of it. The last few texts were dated only 3 days ago. 9257. Booked the villa. Just us this time. No lies, no hiding. Delilah, I want to tell him this weekend, I swear. I just want it over. He dropped the phone, letting it clatter onto the comforter as if it had scorched his palm. A villa? She was planning to leave him, fully, physically, emotionally. It was no longer some moral mess tangled in guilt and fantasy. It was now something real, something with coordinates and reservations. He picked up the phone again, this time tapping into the gallery. There were only 6 photos. The first 2 were of a jacuzzi and a wine bottle, clearly taken at night. A small wooden cottage in the background, romantic, private. The third photo was of a hand, hers, wearing a bracelet he didn't recognize. The fourth was blurry, a bed, 2 glasses on the nightstand, and in the mirror's reflection, a man, shirtless. Not enough to fully identify him, but enough to know this wasn't a fantasy anymore. It was a second life. Photo 5 was what stopped his heart cold. It was a picture of their backyard, taken from inside the house, time-stamped 2 nights ago, 2:11 a.m. And the 6th photo was of him, asleep, taken from the hallway. The angle suggested someone had cracked the bedroom door and snapped the shot quietly without a flash, just the blue light of the TV screen illuminating his face. Someone had been watching him sleep. He stood up so fast the bed frame groaned, his knees locked, and the blood drained from his head. He gripped the dresser to keep himself upright. This wasn't about lies anymore. This was about safety, boundaries, invasion. There were no words, no way to process the violation of seeing his own face on a stranger's phone, snapped while he was unaware, dreaming in the bed he paid for, in the house he called home. This wasn't just an affair. This was someone marking territory. Someone who didn't see him as a man worth respecting, only a man waiting to be replaced. He heard movement in the hallway, her door creaking open. He stuffed the phone into his pocket and opened the guest room window slowly. He climbed out barefoot, didn't speak, didn't shout. He just walked down the alley behind his house and kept walking until the neighborhood lights thinned out behind him. He didn't know where he was going, but he knew one thing. She would wake up alone tomorrow, and that phone would still be gone. By the time the sun rose, Julian was sitting alone in his sister's apartment, surrounded by unpacked boxes, old instruments, and the burner phone, lying silently on the table beside a book. He hadn't slept. Couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, that photo flashed across his mind, his own face, captured while he was asleep, vulnerable, hunted. He still hadn't told anyone, not his sister, not anyone. It wasn't fear of not being believed. It was the silence, the weight of how deep this went. He couldn't afford outside voices yet. This wasn't about feelings anymore. It was about truth. He plugged the burner into a wall outlet and waited. When it powered up again, something new appeared. A missed call from the same number ending in 9257, timestamped at 4:13 a.m. Just hours after Julian had left the house. The man had called. Why? He hesitated, then did something reckless. He called back. It rang once, twice, then a voice answered. Calm, low, measured. "Didn't think you'd actually use this," the man said. No name, no greeting, just that. Julian didn't respond at first. He gripped the edge of the table, his blood pulsing in his temples. "Who are you?" he asked finally. A beat passed. Then, "Who I am doesn't matter. Who I was to her. That's the real question, isn't it?" His voice wasn't threatening. It was composed, even soothing in a sick way, like a lecturer reading a paper. "You were her mentor?" Julian asked. "No, that ended a while ago. She crossed the line. So did I. We stopped pretending. What we had after that, it was voluntary." "So why the hell were you in my house?" "Because she asked me to be." Julian's throat closed. "She told me she was done." The man continued, his tone steady. "She said you wouldn't notice. You didn't for months. I walked in and out of that house like I belonged there." Julian's voice cracked. "You took photos of me while I slept." "You weren't in danger," the man said flatly. "She asked for them." That silenced Julian for a long moment. The sound of traffic outside blurred into static. His chest burned. "She said," the man added, "that you used to talk in your sleep." Julian didn't realize he was shaking until he knocked over a pencil holder on the table. It clattered loudly, echoing in the empty space. "Where's the villa?" he asked, his voice flat. "I'm not meeting you there," the man said. "I'm not stupid. I don't want to meet you." "Then why are you asking? I want to know where you were planning to take my wife." Silence. Then the man laughed. Not loudly, just a single, slow exhale of amusement. "She's not your wife anymore," he said. "You left. You're out of the house. You walked away from her. You don't get to say that." Julian snapped. "No," the man replied. "But I do know what she told me and what she didn't tell you. You want the truth?" Julian froze. "What truth?" "You think this started with a lie, a hookup, something recent? But it didn't. She's been seeing someone since before your second anniversary. Not me. Someone else. I wasn't the beginning. I was just the one she didn't bother to lie to." Every word struck like ice water down his spine. Julian's entire body felt cold now, as if the last year of his life had just reassembled itself into a different picture, one where nothing had ever been safe, one where she was always acting, always scripting, always ahead of him. "Check her emails," the man added. "Not the inbox, the drafts, everything she ever wanted to say to someone but couldn't send. That's where the real stuff lives." The line went dead. Julian stared at the phone, numb, unable to decide if he had just been manipulated or gifted something real. Either way, he knew what he had to do. He needed back into the house, not for confrontation, not for closure, but for evidence, for confirmation. He drove back just after 9 o'clock a.m. The driveway was empty. She had left for work. He still had a key. When he stepped inside, the house felt colder, as if it knew it no longer belonged to him. He walked straight to her laptop. It was there in plain sight, still logged into her email account. He clicked drafts, 33 unsent emails. Some were notes to herself, some were letters addressed to no one, and some were never meant to be seen. One of them was titled, "If he ever finds out, read this." Julian's hand hovered over the mouse. He clicked it. The first line was, "By the time you read this, I assume everything is ruined." He didn't blink for nearly a minute. The subject line sat there on the screen, glowing faintly in the morning light. "If he ever finds out, read this." His heart was already pounding, but something in the way she had phrased it, not "if we talk, not if I confess, but if he finds out," told him this wasn't written with love. It was written with fear. He clicked. The message opened, and the words spilled across the screen in a disjointed, rambling mess, as if she had written it late at night with shaking fingers and a conscience trying to split itself in two. By the time you read this, I assume everything's ruined. I never wanted it to go this far. I always thought I could live two lives, the one I promised and the one I needed. You were safe. He was something else, and I became addicted to the version of me he saw. I don't know when I stopped seeing you. Maybe I never saw you clearly. Maybe I just saw a mirror of what I was supposed to be. I never stopped respecting you, but I did stop loving you the way a wife should. I'm sorry, not because I got caught, but because you didn't deserve to find out like this. If you walk away, I'll understand. If you don't, I won't know how to make it right. You were always stronger than me, smarter, kinder. I hope you find someone who doesn't confuse your quiet for weakness. There was no name at the end. No apology strong enough to cancel the damage. No, please take me back. Just a silent wave goodbye in digital ink. Julian sat back, his hand over his mouth. He didn't cry. He had already passed that point. What he felt now was something different. Stillness. For the first time in weeks, his mind wasn't racing. It wasn't boiling in pain or twisting in confusion. It was clear. She didn't want to fight for him, and that was enough reason not to fight for her anymore. He copied the email and sent it to his own inbox, not for revenge, not to show anyone, just to remind himself later, when doubt would inevitably creep in, that he hadn't imagined this, that this moment had happened, and that he had faced it. Then he powered off her laptop. He didn't touch anything else in the house. He didn't leave a note. No dramatic messages on the fridge. No half-packed bags. That part was over. He stepped outside, locked the door, and tucked the key under the mat. The house behind him wasn't a home anymore. It was a shell, echoing with conversations that no longer mattered. Julian didn't go back to his sister's apartment. Instead, he drove south. He didn't know where he would stop, but for the first time in years, he wasn't afraid of open space. By noon, he had reached the edge of the city. He stopped at a little roadside cafe, the kind with one waitress and burnt coffee. He sat at a booth, ordered eggs, and for 20 minutes, just breathed. Then his phone vibrated. Not the burner, his real one. It was a message from an unknown number. "You don't know me. My name's Mila. I'm Gideon Brooks's ex-wife. I found your number in a shared drive. I think you and I might have some things in common." For a moment, Julian just stared at it. Then, to his own surprise, he smiled. He didn't know what would come next. Maybe nothing. Maybe closure. Maybe a strange, new connection with someone who had also been on the wrong side of a secret. But he wasn't broken anymore. He had been invisible. He had been betrayed. But now he was finally free.